Both players shake hands and we are ready to go. Pawn to d4 by Anish Giri. And Aravind, what is his response going to be? He responds with the symmetrical d5, Queen's Gambit, c4. And Aravind pushes his pawn to e6 with the Queen's Gambit declined. He declines it. Knight comes out to c3, putting pressure on the d5 pawn. And bishop e7, just developing a piece. Also putting the bishop here so that bishop g5 is not possible. You know, when you put your knight on f6, that move becomes a possibility. Pawn takes pawn. Pawn takes pawn. You will see that Anish has gone for the Carlsbad structure, where white has 5 pawns here and 2 pawns on the queen side, while black has 4 here and 3 on the king side. Knight comes out to f6. And e3 played. So if Anish gets bishop d3, generally the light squared bishop becomes slightly passive because it takes away the f5 square, which is why Aravind plays his bishop to f5. But now you have to be a little careful about the b7 pawn being weakened. Although this stuff is very well known, what to do to queen b3, you go knight c6. That's why Anish goes knight f3 and gets up. He has 1 hour 31 minutes. Aravind plays c6 after a couple of minutes of thought. Maybe not the most accurate way to continue, but I'm sure that Aravind recollects something. Knight h4 played by Anish, attacking the bishop. You can go back, bishop e6. You can also give up your bishop with bishop g6, but then white would be very happy, you know, like take, bishop pair. That's the dream scenario. So he goes bishop g4, attacks the queen, wanting to provoke f3, then going back because now the knight cannot go back. But Anish very calmly plays his queen to c2, eyeing the f5 square. The knight also wants to come here. g6 could be played to stop the knight, but knight d7 is just makes a lot of sense. Because if you come here, now I can take, yes, you have the bishop pair, but I'm pretty good in terms of development. He plays h3. He asks a question to the bishop. The bishop drops back to e6. And here once again knight f5 is feasible, but Anish very calmly brings his knight to f3, aiming for g4, gaining more space. You can see Anish confidently getting up from his chair, trying to put pressure on Aravind, who goes knight e4. A very interesting pawn sack, because after takes, queen takes, there's a check here with knight d2 and bishop f5 stuff or knight f6 stuff. So that's the reason why Anish just ignores it, goes bishop d3, and look at this move, f5, just solidifying the knight right into the center of the board. Maybe Aravind has some aggressive intentions with g5 as well. So Anish calmly pulls back his bishop, preparing for maybe short castle, maybe long castle, pushing g4 later. These are all typical plans in the position. Aravind simply castles short. And I think with black having castle short, it does make sense for even white to short castle here. Yeah, he just castles short. And this is a very pleasant position for white, one must agree, because the e5 square is a weakness, while the black knight on e4 can be kicked away by the pawn coming to f3. King h8, a useful move in general, put the king on h8 later on. If you do push, it will be useful. Knight e2 played. And again, a very cool move. The knight is coming to f4 to attack the bishop. The other knight can jump to e5, pushing pawn f3 when the black knight cannot capture the one on c3. a5 played by Aravind. Well, this is played against the idea of a minority attack with b4, b5. And so, just a useful move to make. Knight e5. Anish jumps right into the center of the board with knight to e5. And Aravind, I believe, must take it. He takes on e5. You can take back with the d pawn. It's not a bad idea. But bishop e5 makes a lot of sense. So Anish has a very nice risk-free edge, it feels, as at least for the time being. But you know, the real amazing thing about this game is the tournament situation. The storyline where Anish has 6 draws, he has the white pieces, he's trying to press slightly, and this is what creates the entire magic in the position. So bishop f6, offering a trade. f3 now. The knight is attacked. You want to go back, knight to d6. And Aravind plays it, knight d6. Now important to notice that after bishop d6, queen d6, bishop f5, this does not work because after take, bishop d4, it attacks the queen. So Anish now shows his intentions, his aggressive intentions by pushing g4, and it makes so much sense because after take, this pawn is weak, king g2, rook h1, it looks very dangerous. So Aravind now has a very important decision to make. He finds this beautiful move queen e7, whereby he assesses that bishop d6, queen d6, gf5, bishop f7 followed by rook e8 and bishop h5 gives him a great position. So the knight jumps to g3 for Anish, putting even more pressure on f5. The pawn is under pressure. Well, let's see how Aravind tackles this one. Time wise, Anish 39 minutes, Aravind down to 22 minutes. It's clear that white is pushing. I love this move, g6. Very nice. He's just keeping it calm. Now you imagine if you take here, I take back with the bishop, and later on, let's say knight takes, bishop takes, bishop takes. Already you can feel that the white king is weaker. So he brings the rook to e1. Anish is basically keeping the tension in the position. And now Aravind has a very strong move to take on e5. It's a very powerful move, but he has to calculate it out. He comes down to 11 minutes, takes it. Anish quickly takes back, pushing Aravind on the clock. 11 minutes, 18 moves to make knight f7. What a classy move attacking here. If you take gf, there is this amazing move queen h4 intermezzo attacking here. So that's the reason why he goes f4. Now f4 defends the pawn, and Anish asks the question, what do you want? Queen h4. Wow, he's coming in, attacking the knight and the pawn. Queen h2 is the best move, defending it. But he goes king g2. This is a mistake. Aravind has now an amazing move at his disposal. Not at all easy, but it's very, very powerful. The knight on f7 can jump into the game. Aravind thinks for 3 minutes, finds knight g5. What a move this is. Now if you take the knight, then I take fg4, and this is very, very strong attack that is coming up. So that's the reason why Anish goes and defends rook, the h3 pawn. But now another brilliant move found by Aravind. If you take ed4, bishop d5 check, and it's game over. Wow. He takes the knight now. Incredible sequence with knight g5 and d4. Just getting all the pieces into the attack. Now he's a pawn down, but he takes d takes e3 with the threat of f4, f3. The best move now is to take the pawn on e3 perhaps, but Anish goes G takes F5. Maybe it was better to just start with this so that even after F4 the H3 pawn is not hanging. But after pawn takes, the problem of course now is that F4 is going to unleash an attack on H3 as well. So the rook is going to be tied down there. You can't take here, by the way, bishop F5 because of take, knight F5 and just queen G5 winning the game. So that's the reason why he plays rook takes E3, takes the pawn, and Aravind has a very strong move F4. He plays it. F4, forking the knight and the rook. And Anish plays his rook to F3. Well, there is no bishop D5 just yet because the knight blocks it. But you just simply take the knight and now threaten bishop D5. So bishop E4 played here, blocking. Aravind has 10 minutes, but look at Anish's time. He has come down to 1 minute 28 seconds. That's how tough white position is. Bishop takes, rook takes F3. He takes back with the bishop. And now it seems like white has stabilized a bit. Black can win the pawn on G5. But Aravind, so accurate, plays rook D8. He's like, I'm sacking the rook here, king takes, bishop check and winning your rook in the corner. The unfortunate part is you can't even move the rook. As we mentioned, the H3 pawn will fall. So queen E4 played, offering a trade of queens, and rook F4. He finds the most accurate way to keep up the pressure. And now Aravind is totally winning. Queen D3 played here by Anish with just 2 seconds on the clock. And the final blow incoming. Rook takes F3. Tremendous move here by Anish. By Aravind. Anish is just dumbfounded here. Queen check. Clearly queen takes. Bishop D5. King F3 also bishop D5. So check. King has to move up. King G8. And now if you play queen E7, there is already rook F7 back and winning. So you take the rook, but in comes the check. He gives bishop D5 check. The white king is just too exposed. King E3 played. Now just be careful not to rush into taking this rook, because after queen F6 this is a perpetual and a draw. So he gives a check right into the center of the board. King D2 played. And now look at this move. Queen F4 check, controlling the F6 square. Also, if any checks come, you can block it with the queen. And I think you are now ready to take the rook on H1. It's a nice juicy free rook. And then you would be a piece up. But I believe Aravind wants to be very accurate here. He plays queen F5 check. And now after king D2, you can simply take the rook in the corner of the board. Yes, he does. Bishop H1, and it is time for Anish to call it a day. He resigns. Aravind Chithambaram scores his third win of the tournament, taking sole lead at the Prague Masters.